As far as looking at the computer is not going to show you if it was broken properly. All a computer does is records runtime. This clip is brought to you by PartsView.com. Check them out using the link and discount codes in the description below to save money on your boat and engine parts. So I think people think the computer's a little bit more advanced than it really is. Most of the computers, they're not going to show if you did a break-in period. What it does is as soon as the engine's running, it starts recording, and it records the time and the RPM. So if you're running at 1,000 RPMs, it's just going to be recording the amount of time that you're running at 1,000 RPM. If you run at 1,500, 2,000, 3,000, it's going to run that timer based on those RPM ranges. Most of them go from 750 to 1,000, or say it goes from 0 to 1,000, from 1,001 to 2,000, from 2,000 to 3,000, 3,001 to 4,000, 4,001 to 5,000. It breaks it down like that, and then it just shows you that exact thing right there. It'll get up to wide open throttle, and it'll say 6,250 plus, meaning that you've gone above that. And then it just records that time. So whenever you pull that report and that rundown, all that shows you is that, the engine has been ran for 15 hours under 1,000 RPM, 20 hours between 1,000 and 2,000, 500 hours at 2,000 to 3,000. It's going to give you just a number and an RPM range. It doesn't show you anything about, whether or not it was broken properly or not, because break-in process is a little bit different than that. You're just varying the RPMs and getting the rings to seat. So, after the first 10 hours, after the first 100 hours, you're going to have no idea. No one's going to be able to see anything about how it was ran during the break-in process. So given that, no, there's not any way to show, how the engine was broke in. And it's not really a design flaw. It's just how an internal combustion engine works. It's how metal, it's just how it works. There's not really any way around it. You're talking about, piston rings, a compression ring, a combustion chamber, heat, and the cylinder walls. So it's this component wearing itself into place, and it doesn't matter if it's a car, doesn't matter if it's a lawnmower, doesn't matter if it's an outboard, a combustion engine. Those components, they wear in how they wear in. It's just kind of what it is. So it's not really a design flaw. It's just internal combustion engine burning gasoline. So I don't know if I would call it a design flaw. It's just kind of how it is. And then also on top of that, the load. So the mapping and the load that's on the engine, which is the big difference on why you see it more in outboards than you see it in cars, because it's a less load. So, no, they're not going to really, there's nothing to really cover, I guess, is what they're going to say. There's nothing that can be done really. Figure out why it's doing that and then try and fix it. Usually you can get those rings to seat. If you get them hot and if it's a carbon problem, whatever it is, you can usually get to stop. On the 3.3 liters, when it was a brand new plasma fused cylinder walls, because of how hard the cylinder walls were, that was kind of a learning experience there. They're still going to say that it's the, appearance of making oil or fuel dilution. But, that's the only one, the shows and stuff like that. Usually the ones that are doing that, as soon as you get the prop right and start running it right, by and large, most of them, all the problem goes away. So that's kind of my take on that. Jack Gonzalez, thank you for the comment. I'm going to be paraphrasing this a little bit. He says that my tachometer has never worked, and the one that was on the boat when I bought it actually caught fire. So I replaced, but have never got readings that made sense. My tach jump around like crazy when I start the motor. Once I get going, it either reads 0 or on occasion it will read between 1,000 and 2,000 RPM, regardless where the throttle is. So Jack, tachometer is an analog tachometer. It only reads a pulse signal that comes from the engine. Now, most likely, if you've got a brand new tach in there, as long as, depending on the brand, there are some aftermarket tachs that are kind of like questionable out the box. But as long as you've got, a decent tach, it could, just an analog tach, all it does is take power, ground, and it takes a pulse signal, and that basically gives you the RPM. It's very simple. So as long as you have it hooked up correctly, sounds like you do, because it'll go 0, 1 to 2, so it will change. So that means that the power and the ground are right, but the sense wire, which is reading that pulse from the stator coming in, most likely between the tach, seeing that's a brand new tach, in your engine, most likely that wire somewhere is messed up, because if it was a problem with the engine, you like if it was your stator, your trigger, and all that stuff that was messing up, because that's where it kind of gets that signal, depending on which engine you have, the engine would be running, it wouldn't be running right, because the tach signal is also used on most models as either the trigger or the crank position sensor. And so if that sensor is messed up, then the engine's going to be messed up as far as like how it's running. It's going to have a running issue. But if you don't have a running issue, then most likely from the engine where that wire comes out to the tach, somewhere that wire's messed up, whether that be in a connection point or it got nicked somewhere or it's got resistance, whatever the situation may be, most likely that wire is messed up somewhere. So I'd be tracing that wire and figuring that out, depending on what engine you have. Fake name says, what's the best way to get boat weight when there's no manufacturing info available, or that I can find 16-foot aluminum, runabout 1977 Springbok Rocket 3? You go to the weigh station, bro. That's be my first thing to do. That's how I pretty much, you can either go to a marina with a forklift that can weigh it. So like if you're, near somewhere near a marina, you can, if it's on the water and they have a forklift, you can just drive the boat over there. They'll probably charge you whatever they might charge you to pick the boat up out of the water, look at the scale and tell you how much it weighs. Or you can just go to a weigh station. So go to a recycle center, trying to think of what else would be like. You can go to a landfill, a recycle center, a dump, somewhere like that, a weigh station. And depending on the state that you live in, some of them, a lot of them, it's free. So you just go there with your truck and your trailer and the boat, you get your weight, take the boat, get it off the trailer, come back, weigh truck and trailer, and then boom, you'll get your weight difference based on that. Account for how far you drive in. Do you have a full tank of fuel? Do you not have a full tank? That kind of deal. But other than that, I go with the weigh station, landfill, recycle center, depending on where you're at in those companies. A lot of them will have maybe even a wrecking center, a junkyard. Some of them might have a scale that you can use. Or some of them might even let you just pull up on there, unhook it, and just weigh the trailer. But also, depending on the state, some of it would be free, but that's going to be what I would do. So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, you can see another one over here or watch the full episode over here.